Betrayal, my wife texted, "Big news, I'm pregnant." Wow, I'd served overseas for 7 months straight. Not one visit home. I replied, "I have got news too. I'm sterile. Have been since I was 19. Imagine getting the news that changes your life forever. Now imagine that news is a lie, a betrayal so deep it shatters everything you thought was real, and it arrives in a text message at 3 a.m. while you're half a world away. The air in my bunk was thick with the dust of a desert I never asked to be in, the hum of the bass generators a constant drone in my ears. I was 7 months deep into a deployment that felt like an eternity, far from home, far from everything familiar, when my phone vibrated, slicing through the pre-dawn quiet. My eyes, still gritty with sleep, squinted at the screen. It was Chloe, my wife. "I have the best news. I'm pregnant." 3 exclamation marks, a baby emoji, a heart. My heart hammered against my ribs, but not with joy. I stared at that message, unmoving, for what felt like an eternity, maybe 10 whole minutes, while David, my roommate, snored oblivious across from me. The thing is, I'd been deployed for 7 straight months. Not a single visit home. Not even a weekend pass. Nothing. We were deep in the middle of nowhere, doing the kind of work that doesn't let you take breaks, the kind that grinds you down to your bones. But that wasn't even the real problem. The real, soul-crushing problem was this: I'd been medically infertile since I was 19 years old. Completely, documentably, zero chance infertile. I had the paperwork, the test results, the doctor's notes from 3 different specialists. And Chloe knew all of this. I'd told her on our second date. I remember that conversation like it was yesterday. We were at this cozy little Italian place, the kind with checkered tablecloths and soft lighting. I figured if things were going to get serious, she needed to know up front. I showed her the medical documents right there at the table. She looked at them, then at me, her eyes kind and understanding. She said she understood. Said kids weren't a deal breaker. Said we could always adopt if we wanted a family. She seemed so mature, so genuinely understanding about it all. That was 3 years ago. We got married 18 months later, building a life on what I thought was absolute honesty and trust. And now here I was, staring at a text message that made absolutely no sense. Unless you considered the one explanation I absolutely didn't want to consider. I didn't reply right away. I couldn't. I just sat there in the oppressive darkness of my bunk, the hum of the generators filling my ears, and something weird happened. I didn't cry. I didn't feel a surge of rage that made me want to punch the thin metal wall. Instead, this cold, clear certainty settled over me. It was like a switch flipped. My hands were steady, unnervingly so, when I opened our phone plan account on my dusty laptop. I had access to everything, all our accounts, because I was the one paying the bills from overseas. The phone records loaded slowly, agonizingly, on the unreliable base Wi-Fi. And there it was. Months and months of calls to one specific number. Late-night calls. Calls that lasted for hours. Calls at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., times when Chloe thought I'd be asleep or too busy to notice. The pattern was so glaringly obvious, it almost looked deliberate. I scrolled back further. It started about 4 months into my deployment. Right around the time our video calls got shorter. Right around the time she stopped answering when I called at our usual times. Right around the time she started saying she was tired, or busy, or her phone was dying. I took screenshots of everything. Every single damning call log. Then I opened our bank account. We had a joint account where my military pay went, and she had a card for household expenses. I went through every transaction from the past 7 months. There were charges I didn't recognize. A hotel 2 hours from where we lived. Expensive dinners at places we'd never been together. A weekend trip to some resort. Hundreds of dollars at stores that made no sense. She'd been spending my deployment money like it was nothing. Money I was earning by sleeping on a cot in 110-degree heat, eating food that tasted like cardboard. Money that was supposed to be for our future. For the house we talked about buying. For the life we were supposed to build together. I went back through our text messages from the past few months, rereading every exchange. Every time I asked about her day, there were gaps, evasions. Every time I asked who she was hanging out with, the answers were vague, but one name kept appearing. Oh, Liam, and I grabbed coffee today. Liam helped me move that furniture. Liam says I should try this new workout place. I'd figured Liam was a girlfriend. A friend from work, maybe. It never occurred to me to ask. Why would it? Why would I suspect anything less than complete fidelity from the woman I married? Then I checked her social media. The accounts I could still access. She'd been careful, yes, but not careful enough. There were tagged photos at restaurants, birthday parties, group shots where the same guy kept appearing next to her. Tall. Slim. Man bun. Hipster beard. The whole aesthetic. In one photo, his arm was unmistakably around her waist. In another, they were standing way too close, their bodies almost touching. The comments from her friends were telling too, little inside jokes, heart emojis. One friend even wrote, "You two are so cute together," before it got swiftly deleted. I sat there, hunched over my laptop, until sunrise, just collecting information. I wasn't emotional. Not angry yet. Just methodical. By the time morning came, I had a folder on my laptop with everything organized by date, phone records, bank statements, screenshots, receipts. All of it. Only then, with every piece of the puzzle staring back at me, did I reply to her text. Just one sentence. Cold. Hard. True. I have news, too. I'm infertile. Have been since I was 19. I watched the little red receipt appear. She'd seen it. Then nothing. 1 hour passed. 2 hours. 3 hours. My entire duty shift went by, and she didn't respond. By hour 6, I knew exactly what was happening. She was panicking. Trying to figure out what to say. Probably calling whoever Liam was. Maybe even calling her mom, Brenda. The silence told me everything I needed to know. An innocent person would have called immediately, confused, worried, asking what I meant. A guilty person would go quiet while they crafted the perfect, elaborate lie. When she finally messaged back, it was just, "Can we talk? Please call me." But I was done talking. Not yet. I wanted to see what else I could find first. I went to the PX and bought an international calling card. Then I called our apartment landlord, from a private line. Asked him casually if everything was okay with the place, if he'd seen my wife around. He mentioned he'd noticed a car parked overnight a few times, different from ours. Just wanted to make sure it wasn't a problem. I told him, no problem at all. Thanks for mentioning it. Click. Another piece of the puzzle. I called our internet provider next. Asked for the login history on our home network. Took some explaining, some pushing, but eventually, they sent me a list. 2 devices connected regularly, mine and hers. But wait. My laptop was with me, overseas. The one I'd left at home hadn't been turned on in months, according to the timestamps. So whose device was logging in as mine? Someone was in my apartment, using my stuff. Probably sitting on my couch. Maybe even sleeping in my bed. The rage started to build then. A slow, simmering burn, but I kept it controlled. I'd been trained to operate under pressure, to think clearly when everything was chaos. This was just another mission. Just another problem that needed a systematic solution. I started keeping a journal, writing down every detail, every timestamp, every dollar amount. Sergeant Jenkins, my staff sergeant, noticed I was distracted and pulled me aside. Asked if everything was okay back home. I told him I might need emergency leave soon for a family situation. He just looked at me, nodded, and said to let him know he'd expedite the paperwork. Good guy. That night, I finally called her. She answered on the first ring, her voice all shaky and tearful. Immediately, she launched into this story about miracles, about how doctors can be wrong, how she'd read stories online about men who were told they were infertile but then had biological children anyway. She kept saying, "It's your baby. It has to be. I haven't been with anyone else." Over and over, like a script she'd memorized, her voice rising in pitch with every desperate repetition. I let her talk herself out. I listened to every trembling word, every pathetic excuse. Then I asked one simple question. My voice was quiet, steady, unwavering. "What's Liam's last name?" The silence on the other end was deafening. You could almost hear her breathing stop. That's when I knew. For absolute certain. Not suspected, not worried, but knew. My wife, Chloe, the woman I'd married, the woman I'd trusted with everything, had been cheating on me while I was serving my country overseas. She had gotten pregnant by another man and had actually thought she could pass it off as mine. The betrayal was so complete, so audacious, that it almost felt unreal. Like I was watching it happen to someone else, disconnected from my own life. She started crying then. Real crying. Not the performative, shaky voice from before. Started saying my name over and over. Started saying please. Started saying she could explain, but there was nothing to explain. The math was simple. I'd been gone 7 months. She was pregnant. I was infertile. Everything else was just noise. I told her my lawyer would be in touch. And then I hung up. I didn't wait for a response. I didn't need one. Then I blocked her number. Blocked her on every platform. Blocked her family. Just cut it all off in one clean motion. Later, David came back to the bunk and found me sitting there in the dark. Asked if I was okay. I told him my marriage was over. He didn't ask questions. He just offered to buy me a beer when we got off duty. Sometimes, that's all you can do. Just sit with someone while their world falls apart. I still had 4 months left on my deployment. 4 months to plan exactly how this was going to end. Because this wasn't just about a divorce anymore. This was about making sure everyone knew exactly what happened. Making sure she couldn't spin this into some story where I was the bad guy who abandoned her. Making sure the truth came out, completely and undeniably. I wasn't going to let her play victim when she was the one who destroyed everything. After I blocked her, she started calling from other numbers. Brenda's phone. Sophia's phone. Unknown numbers that had to be friends. I ignored all of them. For 3 days straight, my phone lit up constantly, a relentless digital assault, and I just watched it happen like I was observing some kind of bizarre experiment. Then the emails started. Long, desperate emails about how she made a mistake. How she was confused. How the pregnancy hormones were making her crazy. How Liam meant nothing. That name, Liam. She finally admitted he existed, but tried to minimize it, like he was just some random, insignificant mistake. But I had the phone records. I had months of evidence. This wasn't a mistake. This was a whole separate relationship. On day 4, she tried a different approach. Sent me an email with a screenshot from some fertility forum about men who were diagnosed infertile but later had biological kids. Sent me links to medical articles about misdiagnosis rates. Sent me a whole paragraph about miracles and faith, and how we should just get a paternity test after the baby was born, to be sure. She actually thought I was stupid enough to wait 9 months in uncertainty. She actually thought I'd just sit there, stewing, wondering if maybe, possibly, by some cosmic chance, the baby was mine. That's when I realized she wasn't just a cheater. She was a manipulator who'd probably been planning this whole narrative from the moment she saw the positive test. I went to Commander Miller, my commanding officer, and requested emergency leave. I told him I had a family crisis that required immediate attention. He looked at me for a long moment, his gaze sharp and knowing. I think he knew something was seriously wrong because he approved it within 2 hours. Turns out, Chloe had been sending Facebook messages to other military wives in our unit's family group, painting herself as the abandoned pregnant wife whose husband wouldn't even come home. She was building her narrative. Commander Miller had seen it. He knew something was off. The paperwork went through fast, and I had a flight home booked by that evening. Here's the thing, though. I'd been keeping track of time. She'd sent me that pregnancy text when she was probably around 2 months along. It had been 3 weeks since then. That put her at about 10 or 11 weeks pregnant. Baby showers usually happen around 7 months. I had time. Time to let her think she'd gotten away with it. Time to let her plan that shower and invite everyone and build up this whole fantasy. Time to let her dig the hole deeper. So, I didn't tell anyone I was coming home. Not her family, nobody. I just quietly started preparing. First stop stateside was my lawyer's office. I'd already emailed him everything, but he wanted to see the physical documents, my medical records proving infertility. 3 separate test results from 3 separate doctors, all saying the same thing: 0 sperm count, permanent, irreversible. He made copies of everything, organized it into a folder, and told me this was the most open and shut case he'd ever seen. Military divorces can drag on forever, he said. But this one? This one would be fast. Maybe 5 or 6 months total. Then I went to the bank. Pulled all our joint account statements for the past year. Had them printed and highlighted every suspicious charge. The hotels. The restaurants. The weekend getaway. The unexplained cash withdrawals. Thousands of dollars of my deployment pay spent on her affair. My lawyer said that would matter in the settlement. Said judges don't look kindly on spouses who drain accounts while their partner is serving overseas. I drove past our apartment, but I didn't stop. Didn't want her to know I was in town yet. Instead, I checked into a hotel and just waited. I checked her social media every single day. Watched her post updates about the pregnancy. Watched her friends comment with congratulations. Watched Brenda, her mother, share posts about becoming a grandmother. They were all so happy, so excited, and none of them knew the truth. About 4 months went by. I flew back to base, finished my deployment, got all my affairs in order. The day I officially completed my tour, I checked her Instagram. And there it was. The baby shower announcement. Pink and blue theme. Her parents' house. 2 weeks away. She was 7 months pregnant now. Her photos showed her in maternity clothes, her hand resting on her belly, smiling like everything was perfect. The comments were full of people saying they couldn't wait to meet the baby, asking if I'd be able to make it home for the shower, hoping I'd get leave. She responded to one saying, "He's trying his best, but the military makes it so hard," with a sad emoji. Still playing the victim. Still lying. I called Brenda, her mom, from a number she wouldn't recognize. Told her I'd just gotten back stateside and wanted to surprise everyone at the shower. Could she please keep it a secret? Brenda was thrilled. Said it would mean the world to Chloe. Said they'd been so worried about me missing everything. I felt bad lying to them, but they needed to hear the truth in person, with evidence, not through my wife's filtered, deceitful version of events. The day of the shower, I put on my dress uniform. Every ribbon, every badge, everything perfectly in place. If I was going to do this, I was going to remind everyone exactly who I was and what I'd been doing while my wife was destroying our marriage. I arrived at Brenda and Robert's house exactly 30 minutes after the shower started. Cars lined the street. I could hear music and laughter from inside. Pink and blue balloons everywhere. A banner that said "Baby," my last name, on it. That hurt more than I expected, a sharp, unexpected pang in my chest. I stood on that porch for a solid minute, just breathing. Then I knocked. Brenda answered, and her face just lit up. She hugged me so tight and whispered, "She's going to be so happy," and pulled me inside before I could say anything. The living room was packed. Her aunts, her cousins, her grandmother Eleanor, family, friends, maybe 30 people total. Everyone turned to look when I walked in. Someone gasped. Someone else said, "Oh my God, he made it." And there was this ripple of excited whispers through the room. Then Chloe came around the corner from the kitchen, carrying a plate of cookies. She saw me. Her eyes widened, her smile vanished. She froze. The plate slipped from her hands and shattered on the hardwood floor. Cookies and ceramic everywhere. Everyone rushed forward to help, but I just stood there, looking at her. 7 months pregnant. Undeniably pregnant with a baby that wasn't mine. She knew. In that moment, she knew exactly why I was there. Her face went completely white. Brenda started talking about surprises and how wonderful this was, but I interrupted. My voice was calm, steady, the same voice I used when briefing my unit before a mission. I said I had something important to share with everyone before we continued the celebration. The room went quiet instantly. You could feel the mood shift, a palpable tension replacing the festive air. Robert, her dad, asked if everything was okay. I pulled the folder from under my arm, thick with all the evidence I'd gathered. I started with the medical documents. Held them up so everyone could see the hospital letterhead. Explained in clear, clinical terms that I'd been medically infertile since I was 19 years old. That I told my wife this before we even got engaged. That she'd known from the beginning I could never biologically father children. Brenda looked confused, her smile dissolving. Robert's expression started to change, a shadow falling over his face. I continued. Said I'd been deployed for 7 months without coming home once. Said the math didn't work. Said there was no miracle. No misdiagnosis. No medical anomaly. Then I pulled out the phone records. Showed them months of calls to one number. Thousands of minutes. Always late at night. Showed them the bank statements with the hotel charges and expensive dinners. Showed them photos I'd found of her with another man. I laid it all out on their coffee table like evidence at trial. The room was dead silent. Except for someone crying quietly in the corner. Eleanor, her grandmother, stood up and walked out without a word, her back stiff with disgust. Robert sat down heavily on the couch, his face buried in his hands. Brenda just kept shaking her head, saying, "No, no, no," over and over, like she could make it not true simply by denying it. Chloe tried to speak. Tried to say something about how it wasn't what it looked like. How I was ruining everything. How could I do this here, now? But her voice cracked and failed because there was nothing she could say. The evidence was right there, undeniable. Sophia, her sister, asked in a small voice, "Who is Liam?" I told them. Told them he was a barista at the coffee shop downtown. Told them he was 23 years old. Told them my wife had been spending my military pay on him while I was sleeping in the desert. One of her aunts started gathering her things to leave. Then another. Then another. Within 5 minutes, half the room had cleared out. The ones who stayed were just staring at Chloe like they didn't even recognize her. Her best friend, Ashley, the one who was supposed to be throwing the shower with Brenda, looked at her, her eyes filled with pain and disgust, and said, "How could you do this to him?" Then Ashley walked out too. That was it. The room emptied. Robert stood up, his face etched with shame and anger, and told her to get out of his house. Just like that. Get out. Brenda was crying too hard to speak, her shoulders shaking. I looked at my wife one last time. 7 months pregnant. Tears streaming down her face. Her whole world collapsing around her. I told her my lawyer would be in touch about the divorce. Told her she could keep whatever she wanted from our apartment because I didn't want any of it anymore. Then I said the thing I'd been saving. I gave you everything, Chloe. My trust. My money. My future. You chose a 23-year-old barista making $12 an hour. Hope it was worth it. Then I turned and walked out. I could hear her sobbing behind me. Hear Robert's voice raised in anger. Hear Brenda asking how she could do this. But I didn't look back. I got in my rental car and drove away from that house, from that neighborhood, from that entire life. My phone started ringing within minutes. Sophia called. Brenda called. Even Robert called. I answered that one. He apologized. Said he had no idea. Said if he'd known, he would have stopped the whole thing months ago. Said I was welcome in their home any time, and she wasn't. Said he was ashamed of what his daughter had become. That meant something. A lot. I told him I appreciated it and that I was sorry for ruining the shower. He said, "You didn't ruin anything." She did. Then he said something I'll never forget. He said, "You're a good man, and you deserved better than this. Don't let what she did change who you are." We talked for a few more minutes and hung up. I sat in a grocery store parking lot for probably an hour, just breathing. It was done. The truth was out. No more secrets. No more lies. Everyone had seen the evidence with their own eyes. And there was no spinning that. The next few days, I just existed in this weird, calm state while my phone told me the story of Chloe's life falling apart in real time. Sophia kept texting me updates, even though I never asked for them. Said the family had an emergency meeting after I left, and everyone agreed Chloe needed to leave her parents' house immediately. Apparently, she'd been staying there for the past 2 months because our apartment reminded her of her lies, or maybe because Liam's place wasn't nice enough for her. Robert gave her 2 days to pack her stuff and get out. Brenda, who'd spent thousands on baby shower decorations and gifts, packed everything into boxes and told her to take it all. Eleanor, her grandmother, the sweet old lady who'd always treated me like her own grandson, told Chloe she was a disgrace to the family. Those were her exact words, according to Sophia, a disgrace. That's how completely she'd burned every single bridge. Her friends started disappearing, too. The ones who'd been commenting heart emojis on her photos suddenly went silent. Her maid of honor from our wedding blocked her on everything. Her college roommate posted something cryptic about loyalty and truth that was clearly aimed at her. The small-town social circle she'd built her whole life around just evaporated. Turns out, people really don't like it when you cheat on a deployed soldier. Turns out that's pretty much universally considered one of the worst things you can do. Then came the Liam situation. Sophia told me this part because she thought I deserved to know how it all played out. Chloe went to him the day after the shower, probably expecting comfort, or support, or some kind of plan for their future together. He took one look at the situation, at the angry family, the public humiliation, and the stark reality of an actual baby coming in 2 months, and he completely panicked. Broke up with her right there. Told her he wasn't ready to be a dad. Told her this had all moved too fast. Blocked her number that same day. Stopped showing up to his job at the coffee shop. His roommate told someone who told someone else that he'd moved back in with his parents 3 hours away. A 23-year-old man bun talking about philosophy and art over expensive lattes. But when real adult consequences showed up, he disappeared without a trace. Chloe tried to hit him with a paternity claim, but apparently his family had money. They lawyered up immediately, filed paperwork demanding a DNA test, and made it clear they'd fight for absolute minimum support if he was proven to be the father. So, she went from having a husband with a steady military income and full benefits to having a runaway barista who wanted nothing to do with her or the baby. The downgrade was almost poetic. She tried to come back to our apartment once. I wasn't living there anymore, but I was still on the lease. The landlord called me because she was at the door demanding to be let in, saying it was her home, too. I told him she could collect her personal belongings with someone supervising, but she couldn't stay there. I'd already paid out the rest of the lease and told him I'd have my stuff moved within the week. He understood. Said his brother got cheated on during a deployment and it destroyed him for years. Said he'd make sure she didn't cause any problems. When she finally got inside with Sophia supervising, she apparently had a breakdown seeing all the baby stuff still there. The crib box. The clothes. The books she'd bought with my money. All of it still set up like a nursery for a future that no longer existed. Sophia packed it all up, and they left. I never asked what happened to any of it. My lawyer handled the divorce paperwork, and it moved faster than most military divorces. We had documentation for everything, and she didn't contest a single thing. She couldn't. What was she going to argue? That the baby was somehow mine despite 3 medical opinions saying otherwise? That the affair didn't happen despite months of phone records and receipts? That she deserved half our assets despite draining our joint account on hotel rooms and expensive dates? Her lawyer probably told her to just sign everything and move on before it got even worse. The settlement was clean. I kept everything I brought into the marriage, plus compensation for the money she'd stolen from our joint account. She got nothing except her personal items. No alimony because of the adultery and the short marriage duration. My lawyer said judges really don't like it when military spouses cheat and steal during deployment. Said it shows a pattern of taking advantage of someone's service. The whole process took about 5 months from start to finish. 5 months, and a marriage was just legally erased. I got the final papers in the mail on a Tuesday morning. Signed them at my kitchen table. Felt nothing except a profound sense of relief that it was officially over. Sophia kept updating me, even though I stopped responding. Said Chloe had moved into a cheap apartment on the bad side of town. Said she was working retail at a department store, trying to save money before the baby came. Said Liam never came back and was officially denying everything until the DNA test. Said her parents, Brenda and Robert, were helping with baby stuff because it was their grandchild, but the relationship with their daughter was permanently damaged. Eleanor, her grandmother, still refused to speak to her at all. At a family dinner, she reportedly said, "I didn't raise you to be this kind of woman," and walked out. That was months ago, and they still hadn't reconciled. Chloe had the baby about 2 months after our divorce was finalized, a boy. The DNA test confirmed Liam was the father. He was court-ordered to pay minimum child support, but wanted 0 custody or involvement. So, she ended up exactly where her choices led her, single mom, broke, socially isolated, raising a baby whose father wanted nothing to do with him. All because she couldn't stay faithful for 7 months while I was serving overseas. Meanwhile, I got promoted 6 months after everything went down. Commander Miller put me up for a leadership position, and I took it. I threw myself into work. Started going to the gym regularly. Actually started talking to the base therapist instead of just showing up for mandatory sessions. I worked through the anger and the betrayal and the feeling that I'd been played for a fool. It took time, but eventually, I realized I'd actually dodged something worse. Much worse. Better to find out who she really was after 2 years of marriage than after 10 years and an actual kid together. Better to find out before we bought that house. Before we built an even more complicated life. The betrayal hurt, yes, but the timing could have been so much more catastrophic. I started seeing things clearly. Started recognizing red flags I'd missed, or perhaps chosen to ignore. Started understanding that some people are just really good at pretending to be something they're not. And that's not on me. I did everything right. I was honest from day one. I trusted her because that's what marriage is supposed to be. I worked hard and sent money home and served my country. I didn't fail. She did. Brenda and Robert sent me a Christmas card 8 months after everything happened. Signed by both of them. Said they still considered me family. Said they were sorry for what their daughter did. Said I deserved so much better and they hoped I was doing well. Included a photo of them at some family gathering. I kept that card. Put it in a box with all the divorce papers and evidence. A reminder that some people have integrity even when their own family doesn't. I never responded to any of Chloe's attempts to reach out after the divorce was final. She tried several times over that first year. Emails saying she was sorry. Messages through people we both knew asking if we could talk. Once, she sent a long letter to my base address about regret and mistakes and how she wished she could go back and do everything differently. David, my roommate, asked if I wanted to read it. I told him to throw it away. There was nothing she could say that would change anything. Nothing that would make me want her back in my life in any capacity. Some doors stay closed once you shut them. And that's exactly how it should be. I'm doing good now. Better than good, actually. Got another promotion. Made some solid friends. Reconnected with my family, who'd been incredibly supportive through everything. My parents even told me they never really liked her anyway but didn't want to say anything. Guess they saw something I didn't. I'm not bitter about it anymore. I'm just more careful now. More aware. Less naive about people. I learned exactly what kind of person I refuse to become and exactly what kind of person I won't accept in my life. That's a valuable lesson, even if it cost me a marriage to learn it. Would I get married again? Maybe someday, but not anytime soon. Would I trust someone as easily as I trusted her? Definitely not. But that's probably healthy. Trust should be earned, not given away freely just because someone says the right things. Some people asked me if I regretted showing up at that baby shower the way I did. If I thought it was too harsh. Maybe it was. But she was going to lie to everyone and let them throw her a party celebrating a baby that proved she'd been unfaithful. She was going to let her family waste time and money and emotion on a lie. She was going to take my name and my reputation and drag them through the mud while playing the victim of the absent military husband. I wasn't going to let that happen. I wasn't going to let her control the story. So, I showed up with evidence and let the truth speak for itself. And I don't regret it, not even a little bit. She made her choices. I just made sure everyone knew what those choices were. That's not cruelty. That's just honesty. And sometimes honesty hurts worse than anything else. What do you think about this story? Do you think I handled it the right way? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this story compelling, please drop a like and subscribe for more real-life narratives.